It was early Sunday morning in August. The sun was just starting to rise, but the sky was dark and full of rain clouds. Everything looked normal and peaceful. But this Sunday was different. Kevin was a 15-year-old boy. He had short brown hair and blue eyes. It was 6 a.m. Maria, the housekeeper, was in the kitchen making breakfast. Kevin liked riding his bicycle and playing video games. He was a quiet boy who loved his family. Kevin's parents were away on a trip. They had asked Maria to take care of the house and look after Kevin. Suddenly, Kevin came out of his room. He was already dressed and looked ready to leave the house. That was strange. Kevin never left this early on a Sunday. And especially not when it was raining. Maria noticed him and looked confused. Her voice was full of concern. "Kevin, where are you going so early?" she asked. Kevin looked at her and shrugged. "I need to buy something for my bicycle," he said softly. Maria frowned. "In this weather? On a Sunday morning?" Kevin nodded but didn't say anything else. He quickly grabbed his jacket and walked to the door. Maria stood there, feeling uneasy. Something didn't feel right. Kevin stepped out into the rain. Maria went to the window and watched him disappear into the wet morning. She felt a strange worry in her heart. Why was Kevin acting like this? He looked more nervous than usual. Maria couldn't ignore her feeling. She decided to follow him. She put on her raincoat, grabbed an umbrella, and stepped out into the rainy morning. She was careful not to let Kevin see her. The streets were wet and empty. The rain made everything look gray and quiet. Maria walked slowly behind him, always keeping her distance. Kevin was walking quickly, looking around like he was afraid someone might be watching him. Maria's worry grew stronger. She had never seen Kevin like this before. Then she saw where he was going. Kevin was heading toward the school. Maria's suspicions grew stronger. Why would Kevin go to school on a Sunday, and in such bad weather? She continued to follow him, staying in the shadows. Kevin didn't notice her. He looked focused, like he had only one thing on his mind. Kevin reached the school and stopped. Maria quickly hid behind a tree and watched. She saw Kevin meet a group of boys standing under a tree, trying to stay dry. They looked rough and mean. Maria's heart tightened. Kevin was talking to them, but he looked scared. The boys were speaking in low voices and seemed to be threatening him. Maria's heart began to race. Something was clearly wrong. She kept watching, trying to stay hidden while her thoughts filled with worry. She needed to understand what was happening, but she had to be careful. The rain kept falling. Maria stayed behind the tree, listening as best she could. The sound of the rain made it hard to hear, but she caught a few words. "You owe us money," one boy said harshly. "You have to pay by next week." Kevin looked terrified. "I promise. I'll bring the money next week," he replied, his voice shaking. Another boy stepped closer. "You better not be lying," he said in a threatening tone. "If you don't pay, you'll regret it." Maria's heart sank. She felt frozen, shocked and scared for her brother. Part of her wanted to run out and protect him. But she forced herself to stay calm. She had to find a safer way to help him. Now was not the time to act. She stayed hidden behind the tree until the boys walked away. Kevin turned and started walking back home, his head low. Maria followed him quietly, making sure he didn't see her. The rain kept falling. The streets were nearly empty. Kevin walked slowly, his face filled with sadness and worry. Maria felt a deep pain in her chest. Her brother was in trouble, and she couldn't let this continue. When they reached home, Kevin went inside. Maria waited a few minutes before entering, so he wouldn't know she had followed him. Inside, she pretended everything was normal. But her eyes stayed on Kevin, watching every movement. Her mind was busy making plans. She had to stop those boys and protect her brother. Over the next week, Maria kept a close eye on Kevin. He seemed more anxious than usual. He avoided talking about that Sunday. He spent most of his time alone in his room, Maria tried to talk to him gently. "Kevin. Are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft with care. Kevin just nodded. "I'm fine," he said quietly, but Maria knew he wasn't, and she was determined to help him, no matter what. Maria knew Kevin wasn't telling the truth. She could see the fear in his eyes. Even when he said he was fine, she didn't want to push him too hard, she didn't want to make things worse. She needed a smart and gentle way to help him. Then she remembered someone, her old friend, Officer James. He was a kind police officer and very good at solving problems. Maria trusted him. She picked up her phone and called him. "I need your advice," she said. "Kevin is being threatened by some boys. I don't know what to do." Officer James listened carefully. "We'll come up with a plan," he said calmly. "But we need to be careful. We don't want to scare Kevin or make the situation worse." Maria felt a wave of relief. She wasn't alone in this. Together, they could protect Kevin and stop the bullies. They met the next day at a quiet coffee shop. Maria told him everything she had seen. "We need to scare the bullies," Officer James said firmly, "but we must keep Kevin safe at the same time." They created a plan. Next Sunday, Officer James and his team would hide nearby. They would watch everything and catch the bullies in the act. Maria would follow Kevin again to make sure he was safe, but Maria couldn't tell Kevin about the plan. If he found out, he might get too scared, or worse, try to handle it alone. She had to keep it a secret. All week, Maria stayed close to Kevin. She watched him carefully, making sure he was safe. She talked to him more, hoping he would open up. But Kevin stayed quiet. The days passed slowly. Maria felt nervous, but also hopeful. She trusted Officer James. They had a good plan. They just had to wait for Sunday. The rain kept falling throughout the week, making the days feel heavy and tense. Maria knew that next Sunday could change everything. She was ready to do whatever it took to protect her brother. On Saturday night, Maria met Officer James again, this time at the police station. She felt a mix of fear and courage. "We need to help Kevin," she said quietly. Officer James nodded. "We will," he replied with confidence. Together, they went over the final plan. "We'll be close by when he meets the bullies," Officer James explained. "We'll catch them in the act, and scare them away for good." Maria felt a wave of relief. "Thank you, James," she said softly. "Kevin really needs our help." She went home and found Kevin sitting quietly in his room. She walked in, sat beside him, and spoke gently. "Hey Kevin, how are you?" Kevin shrugged. "I'm okay," he muttered, but Maria could see it in his eyes. He was still scared. She didn't want to alarm him, but she wanted him to feel supported. "Remember, Kevin," she said with warmth in her voice, "if you ever need help, I'm here. And there are people who can help us too." Kevin looked at her and gave a small nod. "Thanks, Maria," he said quietly. The week passed slowly. Maria stayed close, keeping things calm and normal at home. She watched Kevin carefully, making sure he felt safe and loved. Then Sunday came. Maria's heart pounded with both fear and hope. The plan was ready. Officer James and his team were prepared, but she still worried about Kevin. She watched him get ready to leave the house. "Be careful," she whispered, giving him a tight hug. Kevin nodded and walked out. Maria waited a moment, then followed at a distance. She knew Officer James and his team were nearby, hidden in plain clothes so the bullies wouldn't suspect anything. The rain had stopped, but the air was still cool and damp. Maria's hands trembled slightly as she followed Kevin to the school, but this time, she was ready. She had a plan, and she had backup. Kevin arrived at the school and met the same group of boys. Maria hid behind a tree, holding her breath. "Where's the money?" one boy growled. Kevin looked frightened. "I'll bring it, I promise," he said, his voice shaky. Suddenly, Officer James and his team stepped forward. "Stop right there," James shouted. The bullies froze. Their faces turned pale. "Who are you?" one of them asked, trying to sound brave. Officer James showed his badge. "Police. You're in big trouble." The boys panicked and tried to run, but James's team stopped them. "You're not going anywhere," another officer said firmly. Kevin stood frozen, his eyes wide in shock and relief. Maria stepped out of her hiding spot and ran to him. "Are you okay?" she asked, hugging him tightly. Kevin nodded, though he was still shaking. "The officers took the bullies away. We'll handle them," Officer James said calmly. "You're both safe now." Maria turned to him, her eyes full of gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. James smiled warmly. "Just take care of each other," he replied. Kevin looked up at Maria, tears welling in his eyes. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you," he whispered. Maria hugged him again, holding him close. "It's okay, Kevin," she said gently. "We're safe now." They walked home together, hand in hand. The rain began to fall again, but it felt different this time. The fear was gone. The danger had passed. They were together, safe, and ready to face whatever came next.